Jalen Carter, there is an arrest warrant out for him for an alleged role in a fatal car crash. And Carter was allegedly street racing with a Georgia staffer before the staffer's vehicle crashed into telephone poles. An arrest warrant has been issued for potential number one NFL draft pick Jalen Carter for his alleged role in the January traffic crash that killed a teammate and a recruiting staffer for the University of Georgia. The Georgia defensive lineman is one in charge of reckless driving and racing by the Athens-Clarke County Police Department after an investigation found that Carter was allegedly street racing with Chandler LaCroix on January the 15th. Both LaCroix and a Georgia staffer and Georgia offensive lineman Devin Willock were killed when the Ford Expedition. Why are you racing in the Ford Expedition anyway? When the Ford Expedition was driving, left the road at a high rate of speed and hit two telephone poles. Two other occupants of LaCroix's vehicle were injured, and police quickly determined that speed was a contributing factor in the crash. Now, I could say what the H was Jalen Carter thinking, but I'm going to say what the H is the SEC been doing over the past 20 years, because I understand that his time is done at the University of Georgia. But it befuddles me still to this day how there isn't a centralized body in the SEC that doles out punishment. And specifically with Brandon Miller, the Alabama basketball player who had a gun, gave a gun back, resulted in a murder. But just from the top down, I've long been a believer that every coach knows a little bit more about his players than we do. And every coach has a conflict of interest when it comes to whether or not to play a guy or not. So I don't understand how handing a guy money in the non-NIL era is somehow worse than things like this. Why the NCAA can't do something to crack down on Georgia in this instance, or can't call Alabama and say Brandon Miller is not going to be on the court until this case is completely resolved. And I say the NCAA, I'm sorry, the SEC. I think it should be centralized in terms of punishment and reaction to these issues. It's bothered me for a lot of years. I had a coach tell me one time, he goes, Dave, you got to realize if I suspend this guy, it hurts our chances to win, and thereby hurting my chances to win. It could be an upheaval for the entire staff and all those families. I've got a lot of people depending on me. He's right. He's absolutely right. But that doesn't mean that these guys should be able to run free, and that the coaches should be able to make the decisions on punishment. I'm afraid, Caleb, it's going to get worse with NIL, because when you have money to have a sports car, I don't know if you had a sports car in this case, you have money to have a gun, what a Beretta is $800-900. That's the cool gun to get. Suddenly you have money to do things that you couldn't have done before that might have kept you out of trouble. I'm concerned about the safety of some of these athletes that are 18 and 19 years old and are going to be bringing in hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. It's a lot to throw at you, but your thoughts?
Yeah, my pushback is I don't know how you set a standard, because I will say then you have the incident. We all remember the A.J. Johnson incident where his senior year was cut short because he was charged with rape. Remember that at Tennessee in 2014?
I totally remember that. And I hate that it happened for him. But at the end of the day, I'm going to err on the side of the alleged victim.
Okay, let's compare. Let's do this. Here's what I would say. I would say yes, if we had a system where the legal system worked its way out. And what I mean by that is A.J. Johnson wasn't acquitted till 2018. I'm sorry. I believe if you get arrested and charged with something, the DA, wherever you live, has 30 days to bring that thing to trial. If they don't do it within 30 days, you're free to go. Like, you shouldn't be waiting 4 years, putting your entire future on hold to go to trial for something. I mean, this is a huge problem with the justice system in general. Maybe not 30 days, but there needs to be it's in the Constitution, a right to a speedy trial. And so
they don't put a time limit on speedy trial.
Yes, exactly. They don't put a time limit. There needs to be a Supreme Court case on this. I think 4 years is by any definition not a speedy trial. A.J. Johnson lost 3 prime NFL years over that. By the way, it took them, 20 minutes to acquit? after the case.
Well, understanding going back to the AJ Johnson situation, but that was like a 1 in a million that it drug out for that long, right? I mean, most of these don't drag out that long, and
They happen more than you think.
that long, 4 years.
Have you heard about this happened in Manhattan years ago? There was a 16-year-old kid when New York used to try 16-year-olds as an adult. He was accused, I'm not kidding you, Dave, of stealing a backpack. He didn't have money for bail. He sat in Rikers for 4 years waiting trial. He actually had to go into solitary confinement for a period of time because he was getting beat up by inmates as a 16 or 17-year-old. And this was all over stealing a backpack. And turns out he didn't even steal the backpack. He was acquitted. He killed himself and we all believe it was because of the mental health issues that he was hit with by having to sit in jail for 4 years over allegedly stealing a backpack. And yeah, because his family couldn't afford bail. This happens more than we know, and that's why I would take a stance. Here's what I would do if I'm a coach in this way, and a person's on trial and they're awaiting trial. I would say, all right, I'll suspend him for a period of time. You got this long to bring it to trial. If you don't bring it to trial within this time, I'm putting him back on the team because I'm not going to ruin their future because you guys at the DA aren't competent enough to actually bring this to trial.
Okay, I can roll with that, but who is the one that hands down the suspension? Is it the athletic department, the coach, or is it the SEC or NCAA?
I think. See, that's where
the NFL doesn't ask owners, "Hey, how long can we suspend this guy and you guys still make the playoffs?"
Yeah, but the NFL's personal conduct policy has been ridiculous. Honestly, it's been so inconsistent. I don't think they ever should have done it in the first place because I thought the NFL should have just been like, hey, we don't deal with legal issues. You got an issue with a player playing, take it up with the legal system for not putting him in prison. Don't take it up with us. And, now college running a team, it's a little different. I still am fine with leaving it on the coaches. Look, we have enough evidence now that if you let a program get too out of hand with legal issues, it comes back to bite you. Look at Tennessee, 2005. I mean, I do think the 2005 disaster was connected to all the arrests that happened that offseason.
Yeah, may very well be. Travis said, man, at 18, I'd have $1 million. I'd have 3 baby mamas, 2 sports cars, and at least 2 guns. Just saying. With the money that's going around now, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Travis Henry didn't get NIL money. He had 9 baby mamas.
I think one baby mama had 2. So I think it was 8 baby mamas, 9 babies.
Okay.
I think you can check my numbers on that. Check the stats. Go to Wikipedia.